Welcome to the Daring to Differ podcast. This is Anarchy. I am your host. Thank you again for coming by. We grow up, let me rather say how our identities are shaped, right? Our identities are shaped by our environments. They are shaped by the families we grow up in, the tradition, our culture, where we grow up in, and they shape how we see life, how we behave thereof. They shape how we think sometimes. If we do not unlearn some of these thoughts, they shape our lens of life. Now imagine if that is what defines our identities, where we come from, our environments, if they contribute to how we show up. Imagine growing up in poverty. Imagine growing up in poverty. Imagine how that continuous cycle does to your psyche. Just imagine. If you are saying that whatever we do based on the environment we're growing up, it will have an effect on how we're going to behave in society, just imagine growing up in poverty. What does that mean? So welcome. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about the psychology of poverty, or the dark side of poverty, what basically poverty does to you, or the effects of poverty. So I grew up, at least for the 20 years of my life, in a very limiting environment, in a limiting environment, in an environment that has so much scarcity, yet in an environment that programmed how I see life or how I show up today. There's anarchy, the anarchy now. What informed anarchy now, meaning my history, the anarchy then had to go through certain things in life to become who she is today. But most of it was basically based on survival. So the fact that I lived for 20 years in this poverty cycle, it did something to my psychology, and this is what I'm going to unpack today. Be it the bad, be it the good, and the ugly. So please, if this is something that you are interested in, let me ask you to like and subscribe on the Daring to Differ podcast. Neuroscientists, right, they talk about your thoughts become who you are, because the same thoughts, they fire together and then they would wire together. So when they wire together, they ultimately change your behavior and you become a new person, right? So now, growing up in an environment where my thoughts were mostly based on survival, it meant I was always trying to find solutions to problems. I was always trying to find solutions on how we can escape this poverty trap. I didn't know that these solutions would actually create neural paths, or rather these actions would rather create neural paths in my mind, and it affected how I think or how I show up in life. So the anarchy now was programmed by the anarchy then, and the anarchy then was a child growing up in an environment that is limiting because of poverty. So how I show up today, most of it is affected by the environment I come from. However, you will notice that as I get into the podcast, I will also talk about unlearning, meaning moving away from the anarchy then and becoming the anarchy now who is a bit woke, the anarchy now who is able to question things and move away from certain beliefs and from certain behaviors. But the default setting, unfortunately, was already set because I grew up in this environment for 20 years. So the anarchy now, how the anarchy now is programmed, right? There are just certain things I do now, and they are informed by my background, they are informed by my environment where I grew up. And these are the things that I'm going to talk about in this podcast, or in this episode rather. So number one, always taking charge or always being in control. If you've not watched my very episode on this podcast, I did talk about taking the baton from my mom when my mom was not really seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, meaning when poverty was really just bad and we didn't see any way out. I am the third one of my mom, right? So meaning I have two older brothers. I am number 3. But at the age of, I think I was around 9 or 10, I just noticed that the situation we're going through was not normal and I don't like it. And I took up the position to say that I am going to be the savior of this family. Meaning I am going to take my studies seriously. I am going to do whatever it takes for us to get out of this poverty cycle. I took up that role myself. It was not given to me. Although I'm saying that my mom gave me the baton to run the race, that is just a metaphor. It's not that you sit in a meeting and then your parents tell you at 8 years old that I want you to take over the legacy. Of course, maybe in some families it does happen, but in my context, it's not something that happened. It was just a child who saw that what was happening is not right, how my mom was struggling, or the things we're going through, and I noticed that somebody needed to take action, and that was me. I took up that position myself, simply because I just clicked, I just clicked. I just smelled the coffee, and I was like, "This is not normal." Because I had examples I could relate to. I had neighbors. I had people at school. I had my teachers, and I could see the lives they were living. And I just thought that if they were living such a life, then it means we also deserve to live a better life, just as them, right? So I took up that position myself individually, that I'm going to take this baton to be the transformer or to be the change maker, right? So that already gave me responsibility at a very young age to make sure that I am fighting the battle. And when you're in a battle, it means you are driven, right? You have this stamina, you have this lion in you that is roaring, and this challenge or this battle that you're fighting is bigger than you, because it's a battle, not that it's only affecting your immediate family, but it's a battle that has come even from our late grandparents. So it's a generational thing that you are trying to break. I don't want to call it a curse, because it's not a curse. It just happened to be a different situation from other situations. So as soon as I took up that responsibility, it already gave me this room to say that I now need to be in control. I now need to be in charge, meaning I am not going to allow myself to slack. I'm not going to allow myself to deviate from the mission, from the vision of the family, which is prosperity. Now that position which I occupied, it changed also my personality. It changed my personality in a way that I moved from being a passive child to being an active child who had a vision. So meaning I would then take responsibilities that primarily they're supposed to be owned by adults, but I took them up. I would find always solutions to problems. I would always, I remember even for when my school fees was not paid, I would make plans and ask somebody to act as if they are my mom and my parent, and lie to the school that I'm Anarchy's guardian, and I am going to pay her school fees by end of January, and come January the school fee is not paid, because the person was not even my guardian. It's just somebody I asked to literally tell the school that I'm going to pay, but I knew there was no money, So it's such solutions that I would come up with as a young child, and I would try. And I remember when I then finished high school, the fact that I didn't go to university was just like, again, it's my responsibility to make sure that my family is surviving, And that changed who I am as a person. It changed my personality to always fight for things in a good way, of course. Fight in this context, I mean, to make sure that I push through and I get results, to make sure that I take up the responsibility. And Now that I'm an adult, I'm noticing that it's actually something that I need to now start sort of unlearning, and noticing that not every problem need to be solved by me. There are certain problems that I should just let others solve them. Being in a university, I remember most of the assignment work that was given to us, I would always want to be in charge. I would always want to lead, because I'm just like, I cannot afford to fail because of you guys. You guys, some of you come from better backgrounds, and if you fail, it doesn't mean anything to you. Maybe your parents can put you in school and pay your tuition, but for me, I don't have somebody to pay for my tuition fee if I don't pass. So I had that edge of always pushing, and every time in my mind, it's like this battle I need to push through. In the work environment, like really pushing things to work. But I've realized that actually the more you push, sometimes it's not good. It can lead to burnout. It can lead to you breaking relationships with people, because not everybody is a go-getter in that sense. So with the teachings of emotional intelligence, where now I know where the type of person I am, being self-aware, I'm now unlearning to say that I don't need to be in control of everything. I should let people also to take up space. But coming from the background where I come from, my psychology is already set in a way that I want to be in charge. I want to make sure that I'm finding solutions. I want to make sure that the ship is moving. That's number one. And number two, how poverty have also shaped how I show up in life. And this is unfortunately a bad one, and it has to do with emotions. When people say that, oh, you feel sorry for yourself, nobody's going to help you, that was my blueprint then. So meaning, even when things were really not so just working out for us as a family because of the hardships, I didn't have room to feel sad and feel sorry for the situation that we are going through, or I just felt like this is the world we are at, and I should just push through, and I should not feel sorry for myself. Even for when I didn't go to university, when I took 2 gap years because there was no money, it didn't break me. That was something that was supposed to break me, and it's normal. I can imagine now, if a situation like that is taken away from me, I think it will hurt. And it did hurt then, but I just didn't, I was not at a place where I had room to cry and to just go in a zone where I'm depressed and let things unfold for, I don't know, whenever they were going to unfold. But my default setting was just that I should push through. So now I'm at a stage where, to be honest, no matter how difficult the situation I find myself in, it's very rare that I would pull back and just be. By this I mean, just notice that this is what is happening to me, and it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel the emotions. But my default setting is that if this door is not working, what is the next door? What is the other door that we can open? I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but for me, there's just no room in my life where I'm able to just let things be as they are. I always have this fight giant in me. This giant that is always trying to find a next solution. But now I'm now unlearning that, and I guess sometimes just know that when things are not going right, you are a human being, for goodness sake. You are still young, you are still a child, you are allowed to cry, you are allowed to feel bad, you are allowed to feel whatever that emotion looked like during that difficulty. But it's not in my default setting. It's not there, to be honest. It's not there. Because my psychology is that if you don't save yourself, nobody's going to save you. I don't know if you can relate. It's like you are molded to be a fighter. You are molded to be a solution seeker. You are molded to always move on to the next thing. And this is what resilience teaches us. And maybe I should also talk about, for us not to always praise resilience, because I think this is what resilience has done to me. Meaning, for every challenge that I've found myself in growing up, or even at the moment, I don't give myself enough time to feel, to process, but rather my focus is always on bouncing back and finding myself again in another challenge and bouncing back from that challenge again in a very short period of time. So it takes away that feeling muscle for a young child who is going through the most. But yet, I don't have time to cry. I don't have time to feel, but rather just to always stand up, bounce back, bounce back, bounce back, and go through the next pain and go through the next pain. That has been my life for the longest. And it goes back even to things like just basic rights, finding at a very later stage who my dad was. But instead of seeing it as a bad thing and asking him, like, where were you in my life? I didn't see it as an abandoned issue, but I saw it as a thing of, I need to find him, I need to find him, I need to find him. But it's not right, But that's just what psychology does to your mind in terms of the environment where you grow up, where I grew up in this case. It's just really weird. Yeah, so that emotional aspect thing in me is out. And I know for sure, it's just not my situation alone. I know for sure people or kids or children that are going through similar steps or similar path which I went through, they are still feeling the same way I am feeling today. Where you don't have that space to just be, but rather you're always in that fighting mode to bounce back, to find the next solution. And it's been for 20 freaking years. Okay, number 3. Let me just drink a bit of water. I'm drinking water because my mouth is always dry. I got these braces and they make my mouth very dry. So number 3 is not asking for help. I just don't ask for help. And for when I ask for help, it's simply because that is the last resort that I have. I've looked for all possible solutions, and that is the only last and final resort that I have. Do you know why I've become that person? It's because when you grow up in a situation, in an environment where you see your mom suffering and she's knocking on people's doors, and many doors have been rejections, you learn that 1, you don't trust people. 2, every man for himself. So I learned that very early, that even if I ask for help, nobody's going to give us that help. I've seen my mom knocking on people's doors, and very few doors were opened. So I've seen my mom finding solutions to her problems. And that is the person I've become. Finding solutions to every problem. But that's not how life is. Only now, I'm now unlearning that asking for help is not a problem. It's actually the right thing to do. Asking help or for help from your friends, from your relatives, it's the right thing to do. But for me, I would just not do it. Even now, if I'm asking for help, it's like I need to cringe. I literally need to cringe. Because my psychology is that people are going to say no. And I don't want to get that rejection of when people say no to me. Because I just feel like it takes me back to a situation where I saw my mom asking for help and nobody was there to help us. Me asking for help to go to school, nobody was there to help me to go to university. So this whole help thing, it just doesn't register. Environment where I just noticed that asking for help is not every time that you get that help, So that's my psychology, and it's something now I'm unlearning. I'm unlearning that it's okay to rely on your friends and get the help you need. It's okay to rely on your relatives and get the help that you need. Of course, not everybody's going to chip in, but at least it is a normal act. For me, asking for help has just never been my thing. And it's not because I intentionally do it, but it's rather a default setting, if you understand what I mean by default setting. Meaning it's something that I've seen occur over and over in my environment, like at home, my mom asking for help, but it just never came. It just never came. The situation needed to be dire every time for us to be rescued. And so much that when it was so dire, I still didn't see any help. I didn't see help coming. I remember there was a time I asked somebody to help me with something, and they just told me, and this is the truth, it was an aunt. I asked her for something. I'm not going to say what it was. And it was just a basic thing that a child would ask. But she told me, I also just have my children to help. I don't have. So I learned that you don't ask people for help. You don't ask people for help. But it's not the right thing. So now I am unlearning. So that's number 3. I can go on and on and on. You can also just evaluate your life today, reflect back and see the environment you grew up in and how it has shaped who you are today. But specifically in the context of growing up in poverty, because that is the focus of this podcast. I talk a lot about growing up in poverty because I know there's a lot of people that are still being affected by poverty. But then there's also the good thing that this psychology there's also the good things that have happened because of this limiting environment that I have grown up in, right? And one is, and this is a skill, that a lot of people I see struggle with. A lot of people I see struggle with this issue, decisiveness. I don't struggle with decisiveness, and I think this is the reason why my life is where it is today. I don't struggle to make decisions. In other words, because growing up in an environment where it was only my mom with her kids fighting for survival, it meant we had very few outlets to consult. Very few outlets to consult. I don't consult in many situations for when I need to make decisions. I think of the idea, I execute, and I move on. And therefore, the more decisions I have made, it meant the more trials I have played out and the more results I've gotten in my life because of that ability to make decisions. And that's what a lot of people struggle with. I've seen people who would even ask for advice. Ask for advice from person A, person B. You go to your friend, you go to your colleague, you go to your relative, you go to everybody. And you still come back and not make that decision because you have decision fatigue. I don't struggle with that because I don't have multiple outlets to consult. But in most cases, for me, I don't even think I do a lot of consultations, but rather just me informing people, even with my parents. In most cases, the most transformational decisions that I've made in my life to date, I didn't consult, but rather I informed. I informed my parents that I'm going to do A, I'm going to do B. And by informing them, it's just more from a respect approach or element or cornerstone, because I need to respect my parents, but not necessarily because I need their inputs. Not in a rude way, but in most cases, I have that assurity and that trust in me that the decision I am making is right. Do you know why I do that, or why I act, or why I'm quick to make decisions? Is because growing up in poverty. Growing up in poverty, you don't have the luxury of time to be lingering on ideas because survival was the number one mission. It was the vision. So that's the beauty that poverty at least have given me, the ability to make decisions. And the life we live everything that we achieve in this life, it is through the actions we've taken. And for us to take action, we first need to decide on the things we want to do or the things we want to act on. And I have that gift, and that gives so much clarity in my life for when I'm able to make decisions, because I'm never caught between, they say between the what? The stone and the what? I'm never, in my life, there's no middle ground. It's either this or this. It's either this or this. There's no middle ground. So it gives me so much fulfillment. And at least I'm just appreciative of that skill. I'm appreciative of having had the opportunity to make so many decisions. And as much as so many decisions that I've made them at a very young age. But yet they did contribute to me transforming my life and that of my family. So ask yourself today, are you able to make decisions? Are you a decisive person? If you are not a decisive person, try exercising that muscle. It's very essential. I think this is number 4 number 5. And I think, number 5. So number 5 is my ability. This is going to come out very rude, but I was talking to my mom the other day and she did reinforce it, right? Her saying that she doesn't care what people think about her. She doesn't care what people have to say about her because she's been through the most already. And I think for me, that is the same catalyst that I have. That is the same blueprint that I have in most cases for when I make my decisions or for when I just live my life. I don't have room for what will people say for when I do this, or what will people say about me, because I'm just like, damn. When I was going through the trenches, nobody was saying a thing. And if they wanted to say something, they could have come and helped wherever they needed. So this is my life. And whatever people are saying, whatever opinions people have about me, that is for me just noise. The only room that I make for is for when you come to me and you have constructive feedback. Then I'll be able to listen. But what other people will say through outlets like gossip, for me, that is just noise. Because, as I said, the path I've walked through was training me to be the anarchy that I am today. And the anarchy that I am today is the anarchy that did a lot to get where she is from a very young age. Alone, if not with the help of the very few people. So, now tell me why I need to be conscious of what people will say if those people are not there for when I was doing this life thing. And that's what people will say is something that holds a lot of people back. You are not going for that audacious goal simply because you are scared of what people will say. You're not going to come up and start your podcast or start your YouTube channel because you're scared of what people will say, because you're scared that you're not perfect. Boy, which people are these, by the way? For me and my mother, ons worry ni, miskat ons worry ni, jelekan pra, jelekan vat say, ons worry ni. Otwa koronda, in other words. I don't know, when you reach a stage in your life when you can say onda koronda, onda kukuta. It's deep. It's something that it's like a revelation, maybe, but it's a state of life which I can't even explain. But one that is liberating, one where there's so much freedom, and one which is just beautiful because then it makes you unique. It makes you curious. It makes you just a happy person who is living and who is not clinching on what people will say. For me, I show up as anarchy. And if there's anybody that I am more interested in observing, it's anarchy, because I'm just like, girl, you are evolving and I'm loving your transformation. I'm loving the person that you are becoming, based on where you come from. That's why sometimes for us to feel content or for us to feel that we are relevant, right? it's always good to go back or to review or to reflect where you come from. And you'll notice that a lot has happened. A lot of growth has happened. Therefore, you are on the right path and you are doing good, and be grateful, because only that matters, you know? So, going back to the topic of today, for when you grow up in an environment of limitations, it does really something to your psychology. It does something to your psychology, and I think for me it has done so much. And even the points that I shared earlier, it's not things I've researched, but rather it's me reflecting of the process I've walked through and the person I am today. And I click that I am not asking for help simply because this is the life I've lived. I've never seen a therapist, just me individually, to counsel me, because I've always I don't know if I'm delusional, but I've just been like, help, like what? What do you mean help? Psychology, therapist, what? To do what? I've got this, I have my ducks in the row. I've got this. I can figure my life out. But only now I am unlearning that it's actually good to get a third perspective, right? So I am now, last week I scheduled one of my therapy session, and I'm so excited to just go meet my therapist to be, and she'll help maybe unpack this whole whatever I discussed with you guys, and give me a third perspective and how I can continuously unlearn some of these behaviors that I've adopted as a child, that I've adopted or that I've lived with at least for the past 20 years, So I don't want to make this episode long, but let me just ask you to go back and reflect the type of person that you are today. What is the environment that you've grown up in, and how did it contribute to the person you are today, be it your thoughts, be it your behavior, be it your beliefs, be it your personality, and what are the things that you need to change. For me, I know that there's so many things that I need to unlearn. There's so many things that have informed my personality, my behavior, and I need to revisit them and question them, and see the change that I want to see, the new anarchy that I want to see, because I just feel like this is not it, guys, or about me. There's so much to still unearth. I still need to polish this anarchy gem that I am, and there's so many refinery work that needs to go in, but at least I'm just happy that I am aware of the tenets that make up anarchy, right? The elements that make up anarchy and where they come from. But I'm yet to unpack them further, That's why I just felt like I needed to get a therapist who helped me, unpack some of these things. But yeah, as people who come from poverty, even things like getting therapists, these are things that we get at a very late stage in our life, because we didn't have the means to get counseling at an early age. Of course, you tell me that there are free outlets such as Childline Center or Childline organization, but I didn't know this growing up in DRC and the rest of the locations in Chibarongo. But time is now at least getting better. Things are getting better. The services are there. The awareness is there. And yes, so let me ask you to just take a moment, reflect your life, and see how your environment have shaped how you see life or how you show up in life. And if you notice that there are certain things that you need to work on, please do start working on those things. Do start unlearning some of the beliefs, some of the behaviors, because the Daring to Differ movement is a movement for those that are noticing that there is, or they do have the power to unlearn. They do have the power to think differently. They do have the power to change whatever changes that they need to make in their lives. And this life is their life, and therefore they are designing it according to what is best to them and according to what they think is right for them, and not necessarily because of societal expectations, but rather because they are different and they acknowledge that they are different, and they are indeed willing to do something about their lives, So let me ask you to please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode. This is Daring to Differ. I am your host, Anarchy.